Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into the weeds on the 2012 horror film, Sinister.
Yeah, and this isn't just about, whether it's scary or not. We're digging into the source material to see what it tells us about where horror was like a decade ago.
Right, that tension between making something profitable quickly and creating genuine suspense.
Exactly. It's this messy crossroads.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We're looking at this contradiction everyone points out, that there's supposedly a great film in there somewhere.
Obviously sophisticated psychological thing.
But it's trapped inside this, well, predictable horror movie template. We want to figure out why they kind of backed away from their best ideas.
And to get that, you got to look at 2012, the money side of things. Horror. It was printing money for studios back then.
Always a safe bet, wasn't it?
Totally. High revenue business. You can make these films for, well, relatively little money. Atmosphere, practical effects. You don't need massive CGI budgets.
So they almost always make a profit, even if critics pan them.
Right. It's that low-risk investment thing. And it drives these cycles, these subgenres that get just beaten to death.
Yeah, we just come off Saw and Paranormal Activity fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Slashers were done. Gorno felt played out.
And found footage, I mean, it had been everywhere, usually killed off by its own sequels, faster and faster.
So the market needed something else.
Exactly. And that's where Sinister fits in. It came out around the same time as films like The Pact, The Possession.
Yeah.
There was this little shift happening.
So it was what they called atmospheric horror.
Yeah, trying to keep that creepy, dread-filled feeling from found footage. That sense something's always there.
But aiming for actual scares, not just disgust.
Precisely. The goal was to invite the audience to be genuinely scared, build tension rather than just revolted by what's on screen.
Okay, so the intention was highbrow horror. Less gore, more genuine fear, as the source puts it.
And they started off really strong with that setup, according to the analysis.
The character study part.
Absolutely. The core of that great film is Ellison Oswalt, Ethan Hawke. He's a true crime writer.
And he moves his family into a house where, this awful murder happened. Straight away, that tells you something about his priorities.
Oh, yeah. Terrible judgment. He wants the story more than his family's safety, basically.
It's a classic setup, isn't it? The morally compromised protagonist. His career's fading. The source calls him a once successful writer, just desperate for that next big break.
And boom, he finds that box. Super 8 tapes. Not home movies, but recordings of these incredibly disturbing murders.
That's the hook?
And what's interesting, what the analysis really focuses on is it's not just about solving the crime. It's about him, his ego.
How so?
Well, he's drinking whiskey, sure, but he's also watching old tapes of himself on talk shows, reliving his glory days.
So the obsession isn't just the mystery. It's about getting back that fame, that relevance.
Exactly. It's rooted in his own, failing sense of self-worth. That's the initial driver.
So the real monster, at first anyway, is his own ego, his self-absorption. He thinks he's doing it for the right reasons, uncovering truth.
But you, the audience, you see it. You see how it's tearing his family apart.
And his wife, Tracy, played by Juliet Rylance, she really embodies that, doesn't she?
Oh, absolutely. The source calls her excellent and underused. She's the loyal wife, but she's clearly close to breaking point. She's the human cost of his obsession.
The moral compass.
She grounds it, makes you see how selfish his whole quest actually is.
Now, the tormented writer. That's a huge cliche, right? But the sources say Hawke makes it work.
He really does, gives Ellison credibility and depth. It's a tricky role, but he manages it.
Especially that slow change.
Yeah, that transition. From the cynical writer who thinks he's smarter than all this spooky stuff.
To the guy who's genuinely terrified.
Right. That scene where he's talking to the deputy, James Ransom's character.
Yeah.
And you see his skepticism just crumble. He realizes this is real malevolent.
That journey is the psychological horror they promised.
It is. But that's where things start to wobble, according to the critique.
Okay, so we shift from character study to standard horror mechanics.
Pretty much. Scott Derrickson, the director, he gets praise for the atmosphere initially. It's genuinely uncomfortable viewing.
And the found footage itself, those Super 8 tapes.
That's the high point, definitely. The sources say those scenes really deliver on the promise. They're described as haunting.
Making you cringe.
Yeah.
Despite the lack of gore.
Exactly. It's about the idea of the murders, the dread, not just showing graphic stuff. It works.
It proves the concept was strong enough. Just watching those tapes, unsettling.
But here's the pivot. The main criticism kicks in. That suspense, that slow burn, it can't last forever.
Or maybe the filmmakers didn't trust it to.
That's what the source suggests. Either they felt forced or just decided to throw in a couple of easy scares.
Ah, the jump scares.
Yep, and this goes back to the economics, right? You've got this potentially deep film, maybe like The Shining in a way.
A writer losing his mind.
But the genre demands those shocks, those reliable make-you-jump moments. And Christopher Young's score comes in really sharp.
And suddenly, bang, something jumps out.
And right there, it cheapens the film's mood a little, instantly.
You could feel it, can't you? As a viewer.
Yeah.
You're invested in this creepy vibe, and then it's just a loud noise. Feels like a cheat.
It does. And it makes you ask, why didn't they trust the material they had, the psychological stuff?
Because the source argues that the more overtly supernatural it gets,
the less scary it actually becomes. They swap that deep, unsettling dread for, like, temporary jolts. A failure of nerve, maybe?
Seems like it. And if they lost faith in the atmosphere, well, the ending was probably going to suffer too.
Oh, yeah. The predictable payoff. Critics slammed it for not just failing, but actively wrecking the mystery.
How did it do that?
Well, instead of leaving things ambiguous, terrifyingly unknown, the backstory of the monster, Bughuul, is described as too fleshed out.
They explain too much.
Way too much. In basically one plot explaining scene. Poof! Mystery gone. Instead of this unknowable evil, you get rules. A mythology.
It just feels clunky, doesn't it? You spend the whole film tense, trying to figure it out, and then they just hand you an info dump.
Right. And because of that, the source says there's no payoff to the suspense that is created. You feel kind of cheated.
Because the resolution isn't about Ellison's character arc, his obsession.
No, it's just about resolving the supernatural plot mechanics. And, predictably, at that.
The ending is called Fairly Predictable.
Yeah, with an awful last shot. Just left the reviewer feeling very unsatisfied.
So it all comes back to that central problem. There was a great film in there somewhere.
A really unsettling story about obsession, maybe like The Shining.
But it got bogged down by predictable horror cliches and cheap scares.
Yeah, you might jump, sure, but the source says you'll be angry for doing so because of how the narrative lets you down.
That anger is telling, isn't it? It speaks to that feeling of wasted potential.
Exactly. So the final verdict was, okay, it's worth a watch despite its obvious and annoying flaws. It might make you a little uneasy.
But it won't stick with you. It won't have you questioning any bumps in the night.
Right. Functional, gets the job done commercially, but not artistically satisfying. Hence the DVD recommendation back then, rent it, don't rush out to buy it.
So for you, the listener, it's a perfect case study. Delivers the jumps, hits the commercial beats.
But sacrifices that deeper satisfaction by losing faith in its own best ideas.
And connecting it back, Sinister really does feel like a cautionary tale, doesn't it? About genre filmmaking.
Totally. It shows the risk you run when you prioritize those manufactured shocks, that maybe unnecessary exposition.
Over the tension and psychological depth you've already built. They had Ellison, they had Tracy, this great setup.
And then they kind of knocked it down with loud noises and too much explanation.
It really makes you wonder what could have been if they'd just stayed with Ellison's psychology longer. We talked about his ego watching those old tapes.
Right, that obsession with his past self.
So if the original idea was maybe an echo of The Shining, that story of a writer's obsession, does that detail, watching his old fame, tell us more about the real monster before Bughuul even shows up properly?
I think it does. The fact he's chasing that past glory, needing validation through this sensational crime.
Yeah.
Maybe the real horror was his character failing. His vanity put his family in danger way before any demon did.
So the question for you to think about is, when was the film actually scarier? When it was about a desperate man using his family for fame? Or when it became about, the boogeyman?
Something to chew on next time you're picking a horror film. Do you want the jump or do you want something that gets under your skin?
Food for thought. That's all for this deep dive.